Welcome, geometry students, to class today on this Wednesday the 9th. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you're ready to learn some math today. Let's go over these announcements very quickly. Number one, there'll be a test on Friday and a review sheet on Thursday. Can I be honest with you guys? I'm starting to doubt that this will take place right here. We might have the test on Friday, but the quizzes were okay. They are recorded at Sycamore, so you can look them up later if you want to. There was one grade that was, decently low, then an average grade. Then there were two A's, and of course, Haley, I didn't grade yours because I've yet to get it, which is not your fault. I know that. I'm going to find that and talk to that teacher and get that. But I really, I'm not a very good or great teacher, but I've definitely gone slow with this material. I'm going to continue to do that to help you learn it. And you guys did pretty well in the quiz. I mean, even if the grades did not reflect, a high grade, you seem to know the steps pretty well. You were making little mistakes here and there, probably with your calculator. So I'm just not sure about the test Friday. As of now, plan on it, but I'm thinking we're going to maybe spend a couple days reviewing. I might even come in one day, Thursday or Friday, and review with you. So just kind of be ready for, be flexible there. Turn in yesterday's homework, please. Azu and Haley. Martin, I got yours. Jake, I got yours. Jace, I got yours. And Azu and Haley, you guys are not behind at all. This is not due until today, but I need you guys to turn this in, please. If you turned it in yesterday, I did not get it, so try to find out where that went. Okay, please turn your homework in. Jake, you need to turn in Monday's notes. I emailed your mom, and I know she talked to you about that, so please turn in Monday's notes. It was the day that we did not have any homework, just notes in class, and you had to take notes in the video and turn those in. So please turn those in now. The number 4, I know it's a Wednesday, but I'm giving you no homework like I'm supposed to. You have no homework to do in class. I'm going to give you a pretty long video today. If you don't finish the video, you'll have like 5 minutes left, maybe 10, maybe nothing. But I do want you to finish it tonight if you don't finish it in class. So I am asking you to do that. I guess I can't make it required, but I am going to move on, and you need to know the material. So please finish the video tonight if you don't finish it in class. And by the way, today's another day. Today's another day where you're turning in your notes tomorrow. So you're taking notes today. You're writing down everything that I say, all the problems, all the steps, and you're going to turn all that into me, and I will pass it back out to you, okay? All right, let's go ahead and get started. Grab your notebooks, grab your pens, pencils, calculators, your books, and let's get started. Yesterday we learned how to solve trig equations that were missing an angle. Let me say that again. Yesterday we learned how to solve trig equations that were missing an angle. Now let's quickly review this. I want to put 3 problems up for you to look at, so please write these 3 problems down. Now, notice in this first equation we are not missing an angle, we are missing the top of the fraction over here. Notice in this problem right here, we are not missing the angle, we are missing the bottom of the fraction. Notice in this equation over here, we are missing the angle. Okay, this is what we learned how to do yesterday right here. Now I want to quickly review how to do all 3 of these, and I'd like you to take some notes on these. Okay, let's take a look at the first problem here. If I asked you to solve this, you should know by now. You look at the denominator, it's a 5, so you multiply the entire equation by 5 over 1. 5 times sine would be 5 sine 40. And 5 over 1 times x over 5, your 5's would cancel, and 1 times x is x, 1 times 1 is 1, so you're left with x. Now next, you would have to grab your graphing calculator and type this into your calculator. So since x is all by itself, you simply type into your calculator 5 times the sine of 40, and you should practice this. I'm afraid you guys are not practicing this because this is where a lot of you are making mistakes on your quiz right here. Okay, you should get out 3.214. Now if you're not getting that, I can maybe come in and help you later on this week. Okay, all right, so much for that problem. Again, I'm going to go fast like I always do. I do that so you can pause the video and back it up if you need to. You don't have to worry about trying to speed me up if I'm going too slow. Now let's solve this equation. You should know by now you're not missing an angle, so we look at our denominator as x, and so we multiply both sides by x over 1. Now x times cosine is x cosine 31, and x over 1 times 3 over x, your x's would cancel, leaving you with 1's. 1 times 3 is 3, 1 times 1 is 1, so you have 3 over 1. Now, notice the x is not all by itself. You have x times cosine. So in order to get rid of the cosine, you're going to have to divide both sides by the cosine of 31. So these cancel out right here. You're left with an x, and then with your calculator you type in 3 divided by cosine of 31. Alright, and if you're typing that in correctly, you're going to get 3.4999. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 3.5. Alright, so I'm just reviewing how to solve these. These are really not too difficult, and we've learned these over the past week or so. Here's the one we learned yesterday. Now here's what I taught you to do. Whenever you're trying to find the angle, remember you hit the inverse or the second button on your calculator and then tangent. Anyway, for a graphing calculator. Now for others of you it might be something else, but here's what you want to pop up on your screen. It should say tangent to the -1 power, or in other words the inverse of tangent, and then you would type in 7 divided by 12. Now if you will do that and hit enter, you should get the right answer, and you'll get 30.256 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and put 30.3 degrees. So that was a quick review of what we looked at yesterday, and you really need to be very familiar with these problems here that I'm putting up here, these 3 types of problems, because if you can't look at these 3 different types of problems right here and distinguish between which ones are missing an angle and which ones are missing parts of the fraction, then you're really going to struggle with knowing what to do. So make sure you understand the difference between each of these. Okay, let's continue on. Now, today we are going to solve right triangles. Solve right triangles. This means we are going to find all missing sides and angles. We are going to find all missing sides and angles, okay? So if you're missing any sides, if you're missing any angles, we're going to find them all. That's what it means when we say we're going to solve right triangles. So your heading today is solving right triangles. The lesson number is 10.6, and the date today is the 9th. April 9th, 2014. Now, here are the steps that you need to use for solving right triangles. Here are the steps. Step 1, check first to see if you have a special triangle. Now, what do I mean by a special triangle? I mean a 45, 45, 90 triangle or a 30, 60, 90 triangle. If you have one of those special triangles, then use your shortcut formulas. I mean, let's see, for a 45, 45, 90, it's what? Leg equals leg. Hypotenuse equals square root of 2 times the leg. Leg equals hypotenuse divided by the square root of 2. For your 30, 60, 90 formulas, I believe it's what? Your hypotenuse equals the shorter leg. 2 times the shorter leg. I think the shorter leg equals the hypotenuse divided by 2, and the longer leg equals square root of 3 times the shorter leg. So use these formulas. You should know them pretty well by now. So the first thing you do is check to see if you have a special triangle. If you do, use your shortcut. Step 2, if you know 2 angles, find the third angle right away. Doesn't that make sense? Look, if this is 90 and this is 50, can you not add these two together very quickly and get 140? And then you know this angle here has to be 40 because 140 plus 40 is 180. Remember how the interior angles of a triangle have to add up to 180 degrees? And so if you know 2 angles, quickly find the third angle. If you know 2 sides, then quickly find the third side by using Pythagorean's theorem. So that's step 2. Always check and see if you know 2 sides or 2 angles. And then number 3, use your trig ratios to solve for the other missing parts. Remember, SOH, CAH, TOA. Okay, that'll be very helpful in remembering your trig ratios or your trig formulas. Okay, SOH. So there's the steps that you're going to use. Now, for the rest of this video, we're going to work out 9 problems. I think you will finish the video in class. However, if you don't, then finish it tonight. Please, you need to do that. Okay, it's very important. All right, here's problem number 1. Okay, students, please notice carefully I'm asking you to solve the right triangle. Now, here are your steps. Check first to see if you have a special triangle. Well, we do not. We don't even know what these angles are, so there's no way that we know if we have a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45, 90. So step one is done. Step two, if you know two angles, find the third angle. Do we know two angles? No, we do not. We know one angle is 90. We do not know the other two angles. Well, step two also says if you know two sides, then find the third side by using Pythagorean's theorem. Well, we do know two sides, so let's quickly find this missing side over here. So I'm going to say leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. And by the way, isn't this side over here my hypotenuse? Sure it is. Here's my 90 degrees. Go straight across, and that's my hypotenuse. So 81 plus 25 equals hypotenuse squared. All right. Now, if we add those together, we're going to get 106 equals hypotenuse squared. Now, I am going to let you guys have decimals on these. So if you take the square root of both sides, the square root of 106 is 10.29. I'm going to put 10.3. And the square root of h squared is h. So there, we just solved that side right there. So the length of this side right here is going to be 10.3. Okay, now moving on to step three. Now we use trig ratios to solve for the other parts. Now, what parts are we missing? Well, we're missing angle A and we're missing angle B. Now, students, please listen to me. It doesn't matter which angle you solve for. And to be honest with you, I will allow for a little leniency in where you're rounding. You might be a couple degrees off, and as long as you've done your work correctly and shown your work, I have no problem with that, okay? It doesn't matter if you solve for A or B first. I'm just going to choose A because I feel like it. So let's go ahead and solve for angle A. Now, if I'm solving for angle A, I need to use two sides to help me. Let me say that again. If I'm solving for angle A, I need to use two sides to help me. Now, students, you're welcome to use a decimal. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you don't have to, then don't. Let's use these two sides right here. Now, we're dealing with angle A, so let's go straight across, and our 5 is going to be our what side? Opposite. Here's 90, go straight across. This is my hypotenuse. And now here's my other side. This will be my adjacent side. Now, you're welcome to use your 10.3. I would not. I would use your 9 and your 5 because they're nice whole numbers, okay? So what are the names of these two sides? Opposite and adjacent. Now, which trig function uses opposite and adjacent? It's not sine, it's not cosine, it's tangent. So the tangent of angle A, now that's my unknown, I'm looking for an angle. Tangent of A equals opposite over adjacent. There it is. So what did I teach you? When you're not missing any of your fraction parts and you're missing the angle, you hit second tangent or second cosine or second sine, depending on what your trig function is here. You hit second tangent and then you type in 5 divided by 9. Now, if you do that correctly, you will get this right here. You will get 29.05. I'm just going to put 29 degrees. So angle A is 29. You're welcome to round to a whole number. Now, students, look, if we know two angles, can we not just add them together and find the third angle? Sure we can. So 29 plus 90 is going to give you 119. And so subtract that from 180 and you will get 61 degrees. So there you go, we did it. We know all three angles and we know the length of all three sides, so we've solved the triangle. All right, let's move on to problem number 2. Problem number 2. Step 1 says check to see if you have a special triangle. Now, if you'll look, you'll see we have no special triangle. We don't even know what the angles are, so we definitely don't know if we have a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45, 90. So as far as we know, we do not have a special triangle. Okay, step 2 says if you know two angles or if you know two sides, then find the third side. We do not know two angles, but we do know two sides. And so we can find this last side over here, okay? This is a leg, this is a leg, this is the hypotenuse. Here's your 90 degrees. Go straight across. This is your hypotenuse. So one of our legs is 17. Our other leg is, well, we don't know, so we'll call it L. And our hypotenuse is 20. 17 squared is going to give you 289. And 20 squared is going to give you 400. Now we're solving for L, so let's bring the 289 over and let's make it negative. And when we do, we're left with this right here. 111. 111. And now we take the square root of both sides. The square root of L squared is L, and the square root of 111 is 10.53. I'm going to go ahead and put 10.5. So there, we found the length of our third side. This is just like the last problem, not difficult at all. There we go. Now we're missing two angles. We're missing angle F and angle E. Students, it does not matter which angle you choose. I'm choosing F just because I feel like it, so I'm going to solve for angle F. So because I've circled that angle, go straight across. We'll call 17 our opposite side. Here's our 90 degrees, go straight across. We'll call this our hypotenuse. And the last side right here will be our adjacent side. Okay? Now, you can use, in order to find this angle F, you need to use two sides of the triangle. However, you're welcome to use the decimal side. Nothing wrong with that. You'll get the right answer, but I'm not going to use a decimal if I don't need to. So I'm going to use this side here because it's a whole number, and this side here. Now, now again, you could use this side. You could use opposite and adjacent, and you would get the right answer. You could use hypotenuse and adjacent and get the right answer. I've chosen to use opposite, excuse me, and hypotenuse. Now, which trig function, sine, cosine, or tangent, uses opposite and hypotenuse? Well, it's sine. So the sine of angle F, that's what you're looking for, equals opposite over hypotenuse. You're looking for an angle. You're not missing any parts over here. So you would hit second sine. So this pops up. That's called inverse sine. And then you would type in 17 divided by 20. So inverse of sine, 17 divided by 20. And you should get 58.21. I'm just going to put 58 degrees. So angle F is 58 degrees. Now students, think about it. If you know this is 90 and you know this is 58, add those two together and you will get 148. And then subtract that from 180 and you will get 32 degrees. So there's your other angle. You know all three sides, you know all three angles, you're finished. Okay, we're going to do 7 more of these. We're going to work today, okay? And again, we're in class. I'm not giving you homework. It's a Wednesday night. So let's really practice these, okay? Okay, let's solve the right triangle. I don't think we're going to use step 1 on any of these 9 problems. I'm pretty sure we're not. I don't think any of them are your special triangles, but we'll still look at it. Check to see if you have a special triangle. You don't. Step 2, see if you know 2 angles or 2 sides. Well, you don't know 2 angles. You just know 1, but you do know 2 sides. You know the hypotenuse and you know one of the legs. So using Pythagorean's theorem, let's find the other leg. So I have one leg squared plus my other leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. So there we go. Well, 16 squared is going to be 256. 25 squared is going to give you 625. And now we take our 256, we bring it over and we make it negative. So 625 minus 256 is going to give you 369. 369. Now let's take the square root of both sides. The square root of L squared is L. The square root of 369 is going to be 19.2. Okay, 19.20. So I'm just going to call it 19.2. So there, we found the length of our missing leg. And it goes right here. Look at that. Okay, so we're moving right along. Now the only thing left to do is to find 2 different angles, G and H. Now students, you decide which one you want to solve. If I was there in class, I would let you guys choose, okay? But since I'm not there with you, I'm going to pick one. It doesn't matter which one. I'm going to pick H. So since I'm picking H, I'm going to go straight across. This is now my opposite side right here. Here's my right angle. Go straight across. This is my hypotenuse side. And this third side left over is my adjacent side. Now, Let's see what we got here. We're looking for h. In order to solve for h, I must use two sides. You're welcome to use 19.2. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to. I'm going to use these two sides here because they're whole numbers, 25 and 16. Now, these two sides are called adjacent and hypotenuse. Which trig function uses adjacent and hypotenuse? Well, it's cosine. So the cosine of angle H, that's the angle that I circled, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Now notice we're not missing any parts of the fraction. We're missing this angle right here. So we're going to hit inverse cosine, and this should pop up here. And then you would type in 16 divided by 25. And let's see what we get, okay? Inverse cosine, 16 divided by 25 would give you 50.2. So I'm just going to call it 50 degrees. So now I know this angle right here is 50. Now students, we should very quickly be able to add 90 plus 50. That's 140. So we know this angle right here has to be 40 to give us a grand total of 180 for all three angles. Okay, so there we go. We did it again. We solved this entire triangle. We know all three sides. We know all three angles. Okay, let's continue on. Now, this will be a little different. First of all, we do not have a special triangle, so we don't use step 1. Step 2, if you know two angles or two sides, then find the other one. We don't know two sides, but look, we know two angles. We know two angles. We know 42 and 90. Well, if you add them together, you get 132. And if you subtract them from 180, you will get 48 degrees. So just like that, you found the missing angle, 48 degrees. Now, here's where it gets tricky, so please listen to me. We have two sides we have to solve for. We have to solve for this side, and we have to solve for this side. Now, just like when you were solving for angles, it does not matter which side you solve for first. If I was there in class, I would let you guys pick, okay? I'm going to go ahead and solve for JK. No certain reason. I just feel like it, okay? So, what I have to do is I have to choose one of my angles. Never choose your 90 degrees, students. Never. Do not use 90 degrees. You want to choose this angle or you want to choose this angle. It doesn't matter which one. You say, well, Mr. Earhart, hold it. We already picked a side that we're trying to solve for. We'll call this X, I guess. We already picked a side we're solving for. Why are we picking an angle? Well, here's why. Let me explain to you why. Let's just jump down here real quick and look at something. If I had sine of 52 equals X over 6, do you see how I have to have only one unknown? Do you see that? I have to have an angle. I have to have one of these numbers here known, and I have to have one of these numbers be unknown. So the reason I have to pick an angle is I have to have an angle right here, or I'm not going to be able to do the problem. So I've got to pick an angle. Now I'm going to pick 42 again. No certain reason. You just got to pick an angle. So let's back up. I picked the side I'm solving for, and now I've got to pick an angle. And so if I pick this angle, go straight across, this is now your opposite side. Here's your hypotenuse, go straight across. This is your hypotenuse here, this is your 90 degrees, and the other side is your adjacent. Now, we know that we need to use two sides like we always do, so we can use our trig ratios. Students, it doesn't make any sense for you to pick these two sides here. They're both unknowns. You don't know the length of this side right here. You don't know the length of this side. You don't want to use two unknowns, and we already decided this is our unknown that we're solving for. So this is my unknown. Let's pick a side that we actually know the length of. And now watch how all this works out perfectly. What are my two sides? Opposite and adjacent. What trig function uses opposite and adjacent in its trig ratios? Tangent does. Now what angle did we circle? 42. So watch what I write. I write the tangent of 42 degrees equals opposite over adjacent, 6 over x. Now look what I have. In all the previous problems, that we've worked out up to this point, we were always looking for an angle. Now we're not looking for an angle. Now we're looking for a part of your fraction. So you should remember what to do. Whatever your denominator is, you multiply both sides by that over 1. Now, x times tangent is x tangent 42 degrees. X over 1 x over 1 times 6 over x, your x's would cancel, leaving you with 1 times 6 and 1 times 1, which is 6 over 1, which is 6. Now, notice the x is multiplying by the tangent, so we're going to divide both sides by the tangent of 42. Tangent of 42. Okay, these will cancel, and I'm left with x equals 6 over tangent of 42. So now x is all by itself, so I simply type into my calculator 6 divided by the tangent of 42. Okay, and I hit enter, and I'm left with 6.66. I'm going to go ahead and put 6.7. Okay, now that is for my adjacent side. Now if you've got a calculator and you want to use Pythagorean's theorem to find the third side, that's fine. In fact, I might do that now. I'm not sure. We'll see. I don't mind that. I think Pythagorean's theorem is a really fast way to find that third missing side. And that's probably what we're going to do. But just be careful because you do have a decimal here, okay? So let's go ahead and do this, but use your calculators like crazy, okay? All right, let's go. Now notice we know two sides. Notice we know this side, and notice we know this side. So once you know two sides, you can use Pythagorean's theorem. Okay, we're missing the hypotenuse, so we have one leg, which is 6.7 squared, plus the other leg, 6 squared, equals hypotenuse squared. We can do this very quickly. 6.7 squared is going to give us 44.89, and 6 squared is 36. And now if you add those two together, you will get 80.89. And now take the square root of both sides. Take the square root of both sides. And you're getting 8.993. I'm going to go and just call it 9. So your hypotenuse is 9. Okay, so there we go. A little different problem here, a little different than the other ones we've been doing, but yet we solved all three sides and all three angles. All right, moving on to the next problem. This will be done pretty much the same way. We're not going to worry about step 1. We do not have a special triangle. Step 2 says, look if you have two angles or two sides. Well, we do not have two sides, but we do know two angles. So very quickly, I'm going to add 90 plus 63. I'm going to get 153. We're going to subtract that from 180, and we're going to get 27 degrees right here. 27 degrees. Okay? So just like that, I know all three angles. Now, look, students, you have two sides you have to solve for. This one or this one. It does not matter which side you choose. I'm just going to choose the bottom side here because I feel like it. I'm going to call it X, okay? Now that you've chosen the side you're going to solve for, you've got to pick one of your angles. It doesn't matter which one, just don't pick 90. Never pick 90 because then your opposite and your hypotenuse are going to be the exact same side, okay? And that's not going to work. So pick one of these two angles. I'm going to pick 27 for no certain reason. All right, I circled this angle, go straight across. We'll call this our opposite side. Here's your 90 degrees, go straight across. We'll call this our hypotenuse side, and the other side is my adjacent side. Now listen, students, I'm solving for this side here. I already chose that, okay? I don't want to use this side because I don't know how long it is, but I do know this side over here. So I'm using opposite and adjacent. Now, which trig function uses opposite and adjacent? Well, it's going to be tangent. So the tangent of what angle did I circle, 27 degrees, equals opposite over adjacent. And there we go. Notice you're missing one of your parts over here. Let's multiply both sides by x over 1. If I multiply this by x over 1, I'm going to get x tangent 27. And if I multiply this side over here by x over 1, your x's are going to cancel, leaving me with 2. Now notice your x is not all by itself. The x is multiplying times the tangent. So in order to get x all by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by the tangent of 27. Now, when I do that, these cancel out and I'm left with just x. And what does x equal? Well, x equals this right here. I mean, x equals 2 over the tangent of 27 degrees. So now with my calculator, I'm going to type in 2 divided by tangent of 27, and I'm going to get 3.92, or in other words, 3.9. So now I know this side right here, my adjacent side, is 3.9. 3.9. Now, yes or no, do I know two sides of this right triangle? Well, sure I do. So if you know two sides, then go ahead and use Pythagorean's theorem. Okay? So I have a leg and a leg, so I'm going to take 2 squared plus 3.9 squared equals hypotenuse squared. Now, even with your decimals, this still is easy to do with the calculator. 2 times 2 is 4. 3.9 squared is going to be 15.21. Now, if you add those two numbers together, you're going to get 19.21 equals h squared. So now I take the square root of both sides, the square root of 19.21, and I'm going to get 4.38, or in other words, 4.4, and the square root of h squared is h. So now I know my hypotenuse is 4.4, the length of this side. So there, we did it. Okay? So we solved for all three sides, all three angles were good. Let's move on to the next problem. Okay, let's solve this right triangle. Now, notice we have no special triangles. Moving on to step 2, we do not know two sides, but we do know two angles. So if you add those together, subtract from 180, you will get 50. That's pretty easy. Okay, now on to step 3. Use your trig ratios. Okay, no problem. We have two sides we're going to solve for, either that side or that side. We got to pick one. Students, it does not matter which one on a test or a quiz that you pick. I'm going to pick this one because I feel like it, no certain reason. Now that you've picked the side you're going to solve for, we've got to pick one of these two angles to use for our trig ratios. It doesn't matter which one you circle. I guess I'm just going to use pick this one here. Okay, I feel like picking this one. So there we go. So I pick 50 degrees, go straight across. This will be your opposite. Here's your 90 degrees. This will be your hypotenuse. And then this side over here will be your adjacent side. Now, we have our angle picked. We got to use two sides for our trig ratio. We know we have to use this side because that's the one we chose to solve for. Okay? Well, you don't want to use another unknown side. Let's use a known side, like 12 right here. There we go. So we have opposite and hypotenuse. Now, which trig function uses opposite and hypotenuse? Well, it's sine. We should know that by now. So the sine of 50 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Now your denominator is 12. Multiply both sides by 12, and 12 times sine 50 is 12 sine 50. And x over 12 times 12 over 1 would give you x over 1, which is x. So I multiplied both sides by 12 over 1. Now, is the x all by itself? Yes, it is. So all that I have to do is simply type this into my calculator. So 12 sine 50 equals, gives me 9.19. I'm going to put 9.2. There we go, 9.2. So this side right up here that my pen is on right up here is 9.2. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of all this stuff here. I'm going to put 9.2 right here. And then, of course, don't forget this is 50 degrees. Now, notice I know two sides, so I'm ready to use Pythagorean's theorem. Well, I know one of my legs. I know my hypotenuse. I'm missing a leg. So I'm going to say one of my legs is 9.2. The other leg is L, so I'll call it L squared equals hypotenuse squared. Not very difficult, guys. If you have a calculator, it's pretty easy. 9.2 squared will be 84.64. L squared, of course, stays L squared, and 12 times 12 is 144. Now pick this up right here, bring it to the other side and make it negative. So we have 144 minus 84.64. And if you subtract correctly, you will get this right here. L squared equals 59.36. And now we take the square root of both sides, okay? Square root of L squared is L, and the square root of 59.36 is going to be 7.70, or in other words, 7.7. So there we go. We found we know all three sides, and we know all three angles. So we have successfully solved this triangle. All right, let's continue on to this problem here. We have 1, 2, 3 left, and we'll be finished. So hang in there, okay? This has been great for you guys. No homework, nothing to do tonight when you go home, except finish the video if you need to, and that's it. All right? Okay. Skip step 1. We do not have a special triangle. On to step 2. We do know two angles. We know 21 degrees and we know 90. So if you take 21 plus 90, you're going to get 111. Subtract that from 180 and you will get 69 degrees. So just like that, I know all three angles. Now, which side do you want to solve for? This side or this side? It doesn't matter. I'm just going to choose this one because I feel like it, no certain reason. Now that I've chosen the side that I'm going to solve for right here, now I've got to pick one of my angles, okay? Don't pick 90. It doesn't matter which angle you pick, students. I'm going to pick this one because I feel like it, no certain reason. So I go straight across. This will be my opposite side. Here's my 90. Go straight across. This will be my hypotenuse. The other side right here is your adjacent side. So obviously, I have to use a side that I'm solving for, which is x, opposite, and I have to use a side that I know, which is 19. So I'm dealing with the ratio opposite and hypotenuse. Well, that would be sine, would it not? So the angle I circled is 21, and the sine of 21 equals opposite over hypotenuse. Now multiply both sides by 19 over 1. 19 over 1 times sine of 21 is going to be 19 times the sine of 21, and x over 19 times 19 over 1. These will cancel, leaving you with x over 1. Now x is all by itself, so all that you have to do is type in 19 sine of 21. And if you do that correctly, you will get 6.80899, or in other words, 6.8 is totally sufficient. Okay? So I have found this side off to the right over here, and it's going to be 6.8. Okay, and I believe this angle here was 69 degrees. Now you know the hypotenuse, you know one of the legs, you're missing this leg right here. So let's find that missing leg. One of my legs is 6.8, the other leg we'll call leg, and my hypotenuse is 19. So very quickly, using a calculator, 6.8 squared is going to be 46.24 plus L squared equals 19 squared, which is 361. And now we know to bring this here over to the other side and make it a negative. And if you do that correctly, 361 minus 46.24, you're going to get 314.76. And that's going to leave you with L squared. Now take the square root of both sides. So if you take the square root of L squared, you're left with L. And if you take the square root of 314.76, you're going to get 17.74. Or in other words, we'll just call it 17.7. And there we go. We found our last remaining part of the triangle that was unsolved. Okay, well, let's have you try one. I've done a lot of talking today. There's two left. Let's go ahead and try this next one on your own. So I want you to copy this down. Here's your right angle right here. So don't freak out because it looks a little different than usual. Here's your right angle. You know two angles. Find your third angle. And this is an easy one. I just thought I've given you an easy one. You don't even need step 3 on this one, guys. Do you know two angles? Yes. Do you know two sides? Yes. So go ahead and pause the video, solve this right triangle, and then turn it back on and see how you do. Okay, hopefully you've done well on this. Let's see how you did, okay? First of all, I know two angles, 40 and 90. Add those together, subtract from 180. You should have got 50 degrees. That's easy. And then notice, here's your right angle. Go straight across. This is your hypotenuse. So you know the legs. You're missing the hypotenuse. So one leg is 16, and the other leg is 13. And then, of course, that equals hypotenuse squared, okay? So we have 16 squared and 13 squared. 16 squared is 256. 13 squared is 169 equals hypotenuse squared. Let's add those two together, and we're going to get 425. So 425 equals h squared. Now let's take the square root of both sides, and if we do that correctly, you're going to get 20.6 for your hypotenuse. And it goes right here. Okay? So there we go. We solved for all three angles. We solved for all three sides. And we're finished with this right triangle. Let's try one more. I would like you to try this one totally on your own. It's the last problem of the notes. And you can do this, okay? So go ahead and pause the video at this time. Go through your steps carefully. Do everything very, very meticulously. And let me say one thing so that we all do this the same way. When it comes time, notice you know two sides right here. So the first thing you're going to do is find the third side. After you do that and you choose to solve for one of your angles, let's all choose the same one so you can check your work. It really doesn't matter if you solve for angle A or if you solve for angle Y, but we're going to all solve for the same one. So after you do step 2 and you find this side over here using Pythagorean's theorem, the angle I want you to solve for is angle Y. That's the one I want you to use for step 3, okay? Go ahead and pause the video, do this on your own, and when you're finished, go ahead and turn it on and see how you did. Okay, hopefully you did okay. It's not a special triangle, so step 1 is done. Step 2, do we know two angles? No, but we do know two sides. Now we're missing a leg, okay? So we're going to have to use Pythagorean's theorem. So we have one leg, which is 7, and the other leg, which is L. My hypotenuse is 8. Well, 7 squared is 49. L squared is just L squared. 8 times 8 is 64. Now bring the 49 over and make it a negative 49. If you do that correctly, you'll get 15. 64 minus 49. Now take the square root of both sides. The square root of L squared is L, and the square root of 15 is 3.9. Alright, so I'm going to come up here, and where this missing leg is, I'm now going to put 3.9 right here. Alright, now, as I told you before you started the video, I really wanted you to find angle Y. Now you could listen, students. You could solve for angle Y. You could or angle A. You could solve for angle Y. It doesn't matter. You'll get the same answer. But I'm going to go ahead and solve for angle Y. Also, when you solve for angle Y, you need two sides. Well, look. You can use the decimal side, that's fine, but whenever I don't have to use decimals, I'm not going to. So I'm going to use these two sides here. Now, here's my angle Y. I'm going to go straight across, so I'm going to call 3.9 my opposite. Here's my 90 degrees. I'm going to go straight across and call this my hypotenuse. And then my third side is called my adjacent. So the two sides I'm going to use are hypotenuse and adjacent. Now, which trig function has adjacent and hypotenuse? Well, if you think about it, it should be cosine. So we're going to write the cosine, and what angle did I circle? Y. The cosine of Y equals, oh, I'm wrong. Yeah, that's right. It's cosine, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, you're not missing any of your fractional parts. You're missing the angle. So you hit second cosine, and up pops inverse cosine of 7 divided by 8. So with your calculators, go ahead and type that in. Hopefully you already did that. Second cosine 7 divided by 8, and you're getting 28.95. I'm just going to go ahead and put 30. So you might have rounded to a different place. That's fine. I'm putting 30 degrees right here. Now, if this is 30 and this is 90, then this has to be 60. because all three of these angles have to add up to 190 or 180, excuse me. So there we go. That's the last problem in the notes. I hope this has been a help to you. And again, students, I'm not sure if I'm going to come in Thursday or Friday. I'm thinking all this through. I'm going to look at the quizzes a little more thoroughly and stuff, and make a decision here, okay? And then we'll go from there. But that's it for the video. I hope you guys have a good day today. You'll have to turn in all your notes tomorrow, so please don't lose these, okay? All right, have a good day. Yes.